Welcome to the 287th episode of the Reading and Writing Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Rutherford. Stay tuned for my interview with Nandi Taylor, author of the novel Gideon. Stay tuned for the interview. Welcome back to the Reading and Writing Podcast. My guest today is Nandi Taylor. Taylor's debut novel, Gideon, has just been published. Nandi, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Great. Well, can you read the first couple of pages of your new novel, Gideon?
Yeah, I sure can. All right, let's get into it. Yanny made her decision as her cousins slithered through the grass like log snakes, hemming the creature in from all sides. They would hate her for this. She pulled energy through her focus room, a band of white painted across her eyes, and felt its warm tingle on her skin as it sharpened her vision. Ahead, the Yanny shimmered in the sunlight, the black hair of its haunches flashing blue, then green, then gold. It grazed, its graceful neck bent forward and its tall horns curved and gleaming like blackwood. 4 long legs, suited for loping sprints, disappeared into the tall grass. Such a gorgeous animal. Small wonder her cousins wanted to skin it, put its head on display, and make a cape of its pelt. But Yanny were highly intelligent. It was rare to see more than 1 or 2 at a time, and the scholars theorized that they sacrificed themselves to draw predators away from the main herd. In fact, Yanny was certain it knew they were there. At any moment, it would draw on Ache, the divine energy that ran through all things, and put on a magical burst of speed to dart away. She planned to help it escape. Yanny heard a bird trill high and sweet, and recognized it as the signal that one of her cousins, or perhaps her younger brother, was in place. Another bird call, and another. They would not attack with fire. That would singe the creature's hide. No. They would chase the poor thing this way and that until they could catch it, and then someone would snap its neck with their bare hands, if she let them. Yanny moved through the glass clumsily, causing it to shake and shiver around her. The formation was still incomplete. Run, she thought desperately. As if it had heard her, the creature took off, its legs glowing with Ache as it galloped through the tall grass. Yanny flared the speed runes on her thighs and calves, relishing the familiar warmth of energy coursing through her, and shot after it. 2 of her cousins jumped up out of the grass. "Weh! Weh!" they shouted, waving their arms. The Yanny zipped right, where her younger brother Jumi kept pace, his runes blazing blue-right on his dark skin. He dove, arms wide, to tackle the Yanny, but it slipped free and left him tumbling. Yanny grinned, until she realized the creature now ran right at her. If she scared it, it would turn tail and head straight for her cousin, Adige. He would no doubt catch it, and then... Yanny sprang out of the path of the runaway Yanny, flattening herself to the grass. The ground vibrated as it thundered past, and she heard her cousin let out a frustrated curse. "Mothers and fathers, it escaped into the forest. We'll never find it now." Standing, Yanny brushed herself off while mentally tensing against the tirade to come. She did feel a small stab of guilt for ruining the hunt, but it was her last trip for a long while to come, and she refused to taint the memory. The pale grass of the plain against the soft blue of the sky, with the tang of the beautiful animal's red blood. When Yanny looked up, the others, all 8 of them, stood across from her with their eyes glittering in accusation under their white focus runes. "Why didn't you chase it toward us?" Adige demanded. Yanny stood straighter, raising her chin to meet his gaze, saying nothing. But her cousin was too far gone in his irritation to afford her proper respect. "You let it escape on purpose, didn't you? Probably due to some foolish notion of it being too pretty to kill." He threw up his hands. "This is why I dislike hunting with women." He kicked at the grass like a petulant child. "Ah, it wasn't me who let it escape," cried Adeige's younger sister. She looked like a feminine version of him, right down to the fire in her eyes. "Don't lump us together." A second later, she sent Yanny a frightened glance before fixing her gaze on the ground. Yanny huffed. It was one thing to bring down a boar for a feast, or defend a village from a pack of emboldened hyenas, but rare and intelligent creatures, especially those that could channel Ache, had always been Yanny's weakness. Though she loved to encounter such animals in the wild, to stalk and study them, she was loath to kill them. "Yes, I found it beautiful, as did you, which is why you wanted to capture it." "And now it's gone," Adige shouted. "I don't know who you think you are." Her temper flared hot in her face. "I am Yanny Ajanifeme Ka Yerba, and you do well to remember that." Adige and the others bowed their heads, all except her brother, and Yanny winced. She'd promised herself she would use her prowess as a tracker, not her title, to win their respect. But pig-headed Adige always got under her skin. Let's return, she said, and before anyone could answer, she turned and pulled Ache through her speed runes, dashing toward the white houses of the city and the gleaming gold palace perched on top of the hill.
Great. Well, if someone listening hasn't heard about Given yet, how would you describe your debut novel?
Okay, so Gideon is the story of Yanny, who is an island princess. Her father is very sick, and she is determined to go on a journey to try and save him to the neighboring empire, where they've heard that a similar illness has taken hold. And so it's about how she goes abroad and her experiences when she enrolls in a magical academy in that neighboring empire. She faces things like culture shock, prejudice, but she also encounters this kind of arrogant, brash, shape-shifting dragon named Waish, who immediately claims that they are given or destined soulmates. And that goes about as well for Mr. Dragon as you would expect it to. So, all in all, I would describe this primarily as a fantasy romance, but it's also got themes of kind of coming of age and growing up.
And do you remember the original idea or impetus that led you to writing Given?
So I've always said it came a lot from my own experiences as a foreigner living abroad. I lived in Tokyo, Japan for a few years, and it was the best experience of my life. It really was great, but it did come with its share of microaggressions and things like people assuming they knew me just based on what they knew about Black people from media and a lot of what I went through are things that Yanny faces in the book. For example, people wanting to touch her hair and her feeling vaguely uncomfortable with that because she comes from a homogenous culture. She's never had anyone be like, "Oh, can I touch your hair?" Because everyone had the same hair, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just one example of kind of these microaggressions that I face that Yanny also faces in the book.
Well, I know that that Given you originally published on Wattpad,
I did, yeah.
and now it's being published. Can you kind of explain for the listeners how Wattpad works? And I was curious, like, what was your decision to do that?
So if I were to describe Wattpad, I would call it maybe like a YouTube for books. Basically, anyone can put anything they write up there. You'll find a lot of fan fiction, but you'll also find some original books too, and a lot of authors who are just trying to gain a readership online. And so that was my intent when I put Given Up. The readership on Wattpad is, I'd say, heavily skews toward women age 13 to 35, maybe, and that was pretty much the core audience for something like Given, which is a fantasy romance. So I thought that it would probably do well there. It's far exceeded my expectations, as in now that it's published and on bookshelves. But that was why I started posting to Wattpad. I wanted to kind of gain an audience, also gain a community as well. The comments from readers really have helped shape the final product of the book.
And so, how did that work? Were you posting it chapter by chapter as you were writing it?
Yes. Basically, I had the first draft done, but what I was posting was so much of a rewrite that a lot of it was new information or new writing. So I was posting it pretty much as I wrote it, especially near the end.
And obviously, given the publication now, it gained an audience on Wattpad. What was that like of writing and knowing that there were people waiting for the next chapter?
That's both gratifying and stressful because, I mean, knowing that people were waiting really did help me just get off my butt and write. It was a great motivation, but it's also, when you maybe don't have, you kind of sometimes want to give into the temptation just to throw anything up there to make people happy, but that's not why they're coming to read the story. They want to read, the best that you can put out reasonably in that time frame. And I was trying my best to update twice a week. That didn't always happen, but yeah, so I think it's great to get that feedback. And I'm eternally grateful for it. It really helped me grow as a writer and see where my weaknesses were. But it can also be a little bit stressful.
And did you ever change anything in terms of plot or character or any of the world building based on feedback from your Wattpad audience?
Yeah, that was primarily helpful when it came to foreshadowing. And if people could figure out or see something coming that I didn't want them to see coming, then I would realize, okay, that needs to be tweaked and fixed. Maybe I'm giving too much away up front. Um, and also, I would ask questions as well at the end of chapters. I mean, Wattpad, if you use it right, can really be a great kind of market research tool because I'd ask questions. What do you think about this argument? Do you think this person was right here? And like, it really gave me kind of a gauge of how people felt about the characters.
And so, just to clarify, are you now publishing the book through Wattpad, or how does that work exactly?
So it's published through Wattpad in two different ways. One is the traditional means of publishing, which is that Wattpad has started their own publishing house called Wattpad Books. And so Given is in bookstores in Canada, the US, and the UK through Wattpad, and in partnership with Penguin Random House as well in the UK. And then it's also available and it's also, sorry, an ebook on Amazon.
Hmm.
But then it's also available on Wattpad's website through their Wattpad paid program, which means that people can buy coins and use them to unlock the story chapter by chapter, which is interesting.
That's interesting. So, given your experience of posting and what you just described, would you recommend that other writers investigate and possibly use Wattpad?
I would. It worked out very well for me. It does depend on what you are writing. Like I said, that main audience tends to be women 13 to 35. I'd say that said, there are a lot of just core fantasy books with no romance that have done well on Wattpad as well. One that I could think of off the top of my head was the Summoner series by Karen Matharu. That became a bestseller and it started out on Wattpad. Um, but it is really up to each author. I'd say it's great for gaining an audience. It's great for getting feedback. I think it's really good, especially for authors who are at the beginning of their career and are looking for a sense of community.
So, when you started posting, had you written an outline? Did you know where the novel was going, or was it more of an organic process for you?
It was a little bit of both. Like I said, I had the first draft done, but it changed so much as I was writing it from that first draft that a lot of it was, in fact, organic.
Gotcha. So what are you writing now? Are you writing a sequel or another book with the character from Given?
Yes, I am knee deep in the sequel to Given, more than halfway. Hoping to finish that up in the next couple of weeks, actually. And it's being posted to Wattpad as I go.
Gotcha. I was going to ask that. And what's the title of that?
That one is called Hidden.
Hidden?
Yes.
Gotcha. So given your experience thus far with Given and now Hidden that you're working on, what advice would you have for aspiring writers who may be listening and interested in writing their own stories or novels?
I mean, it's advice that they've probably heard a million times over, but the main thing you need to do is write and finish a book. Um, I have been writing for uh, a good, I'd say, 10 years um, with the intention of eventually publishing something. And not one of those words was wasted because they all laid that foundation for me to be able to write the book that would eventually um, be good enough to catch someone's eye and get published. So that should be, if you're a new writer starting out, your main focus should be write as much as you can, learn as much as you can about writing and about the publishing industry as well if you're looking to go into traditional publishing.
And what books have you read recently that you would recommend?
I'm in the process of reading Becoming by Michelle Obama, which is great for you're just hyping yourself up and kind of she's incredibly what she was able to accomplish and at a young age is very inspiring. I'm also reading An Ember in the Ashes, by Sawa Tahir, which is a best-selling YA novel. I'm sure a lot of people would have heard of that one. And then for my, I have a book club, and I'm reading a murder mystery called The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. And murder mysteries are always really fun to read, and I find them particularly intimidating because, like I said, foreshadowing can always be difficult, right? You don't want it's you got to hit that balance of um, giving clues, but not letting people solve the mystery before you want them to.
Great. Well, if someone is interested in learning more about you and more about your book, Given, and your upcoming novel, where can people find you online?
Yeah, so I've got a Instagram account. It's under Nandi T Author. I'm on Twitter as well, Nandi_Taylor, and then I have my own website, which is www.nanditaylor.com.
Great. Well, again, we've been speaking with Nandi Taylor, author of the new fantasy novel, Given. You can go grab a copy of the book now. Nandi, thanks for doing this interview.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot. If you're new to audiobooks, they're the perfect way to get more books into your busy life. Listen to audiobooks during your commute, while doing chores, walking the dog, or just relaxing at home. All you need is a smartphone and the free Libro.fm app. If you already love audiobooks and don't know what to listen to next, check out recommendations and curated lists from people who know audiobooks best, your local bookseller. Reading and Writing Podcast special offer: get 2 audiobooks for the price of 1 with your first month of membership with code RWPodcast. That's code RWPodcast for 2 audiobooks for the price of 1 for your first month of membership at Libro.fm.